Dan from Make Music, and I'm here with educator, clinician, and education specialist for Make Music, Ted Scalzo. So, thinking about practice, when you're working with students, what does the ideal practice session look like? What do you want them in the perfect world to?
So the first thing I would love for all students to have is a safe place to practice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes that's not always attainable. And a place where they can set up and it's consistent, you know, and maybe be their little haven so that they can focus. The ideal situation would be that they would have their instrument available, that they are able to have enough room to move for their instrument, and then, you know, the ability to have the right chair or to be able to stand and have the right posture. So all of that would be the first things, you know, that you would want, you know, in terms of being an ideal practice situation. And then, of course, in today's world, introducing some technology into that is, I think, kind of a necessity at this point, and especially after coming through COVID. So, you know, the ability to listen to a recording, the ability to maybe play along with the recording, and, of course, you know, get some kind of feedback, you know, either through the technology or by a teacher listening to whatever it is the students produced. And then I think the ideal practice situation is also one that's been sculpted by a proficient teacher, somebody who, you know, has trained a student on the ways and techniques of deliberate practice. What are the things you need to do in order to obtain this goal of playing with good sound or great articulation or emoting and making the audience feel this phrase. So.
Great. In an ensemble classroom, what ways did you incorporate some solo or small ensemble opportunities?
Well, in the state that I taught, there was always a festival, and then there was a solo festival in the springtime, and students could sign up and perform a solo for an adjudicator. So that was one of the ways we did it. The other would be like through our jazz ensemble, where students were allowed to freely improvise and create solos. And the small ensemble came about prior, you know, to the ensemble, mainly by student interest. I had a wonderful bunch of students who just said, "Hey, we'd like to form a brass quintet." And I was like, "Yeah, so let's get some music and let's make that happen." And we did. And the beauty of the small ensemble within the large ensemble, as all educators know, is now everybody's kind of one on a part. So everybody's technique level's got to be elevated. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I'm really enjoying about Smart Music is the fact that we have this huge library of small ensemble literature. And what I'm hearing around the country, which is really cool, is things like orchestra teachers assigning the Canadian Brass Quintet material to their students because it's a different timbre that's very clear to them, and it's only 5 voices that are professionally recorded and performed, and their students are latching on to the lines. And then some teachers have told me what they'll do is they'll break up their ensemble and create mini ensembles and break them up around the room. Okay, you're going to work on this piece. You guys go over here and work on that one. And I've done that kind of thing too as well in the past. So small ensemble is your quickest, I think, way to develop technique and get elevated performance out of your students.
Great. And so you've mentioned technology a few times. What ways do you use or did you use technology in your ensembles?
Well, I got to say I've been enthralled with anything to do with music technology ever since I went to NYU. One of the things they actually made us do at NYU was learn how to program an Atari to play a single note. And the whole premise there was you may not become a programmer, but you kind of need to know about this because this is going to be our new world. This is I'm talking in the 80s. So I was always, you know, interested in it, and I also grew up in an era where electronic music first came to be, and I was very fortunate to know one of the co-developers of the Moog synthesizer, and that's Dr. Herb Deutsch at Hofstra University. And all that influence, and also in our musical cultures where those, you know, electronic instruments were influencing. And what I chose to do was to bring that into a wind ensemble So one of the things we would have in our wind ensemble is we would actually have a synthesizer, speakers placed in the back of the wind ensemble, and a lot of the pieces we did would have some kind of electronic support in regards to it. And I learned from a composer named Steve Melillo about what happens when you support with a pad bass. And it just illuminated for me how quickly we could get an ensemble to play more in tune. So by having that pad bass and then everybody learning to tune to it and structure, it just transformed the ensembles. So, you know, I've had again, we had laptop in our group. We were using Logic Pro at the time. We would supplement some of the esoteric sounds, like, you know, how many schools have a harp player? So we didn't have a harp, but we had a keyboard player who could play harp. So it just made the band more orchestral. And so we embraced it in both the rehearsal and then out in the concert hall. And the other part of the music technology thing was at Bayshore, where I taught. We were very fortunate to develop or build a large multimedia center where our students learned how to compose utilizing music technology. And then we started doing video as well and producing podcasts, and students were composing the music to go along with the videos we were producing. So we were like our own entertainment production company in a sense. So students were learning a lot about a lot of different things, and in terms of creation, what the process was like, and how is it to work with people. And the one thing that I got out of all of the technology was when students are empowered and they're given the option to learn something that they feel strongly about, and they also realize, I'm not building this for me, I'm not building it for you, I'm actually building it so the world is going to consume it. There's a lot more ownership. And once I did kind of embraced that concept, I brought that same thing into our wind ensemble. And technology was one of the tools we used to make that happen.
Great. Wow. Well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to talk with us today.
My pleasure.